Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. We're here today with special guest, Richard Sparks, and he's here to share with us his hot new epic fantasy book, New Rock, New Roll. Are you looking for a book you won't want to put down that combines both gaming and reality? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Richard Sparks' writing credentials span the gamut of the entertainment world, from film, TV, and books through lyrics for operas. He has been commissioned by the Los Angeles Opera and has completed translations and adaptations of classical operas. He has worked with such luminaries as Placido Domingo, Rowan Atkins, and John Cheese of Monty Python and Fawlty Towers fame. Richard got his big break as a writer on Not the 9 O'Clock News on BBC TV, and was the author of Atkins' famous Schoolmaster routine, in which the future Mr. Bean puts on a hilarious spin on attendance taking and discipline. So welcome to the show, Richard Sparks.
Thank you, Marianne.
My goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this?
Oh, well, it came out of my love of role-playing games online. I was just galloping around, getting up to mischief with my teammates in my ear, and they were all over the world, all scoundrels like me, setting a trap for some other team in some magical sword and sorcery game. And I was just thinking, what would it really be like to be that guy, that heroic young battle mage, galloping around with his magic staff, ready to rumble and see what the world has for him. And of course, there's only one way to find out it. And for real, by the way, not in a game. And the only way to find out was to write it. And of course, once champion finds himself in this new world, he'd be completely useless. He may have just won the world championship of sword and sorcery with his teammates, but pushing a joystick around or mashing a keyboard is a far cry from wielding an actual sword in an actual wilderness, being chased by actual wolves. So things get worse, as they would. So he's got to survive and find his teammates and figure out what's going on. And if he's going to work out why he got there and what on earth happened, he's going to have to get through to the end of the quest that reveals itself.
Well, you have written such a phenomenal book, and I love how you just interweave everything together. Now, were the characters kind of writing themselves, or did you kind of have a game plan?
Game plan, get it? Very good. They write themselves. Characters always reveal themselves. I mean, basically, the lead character is kind of based on me, who's a retired, middle-aged English school teacher in the countryside in England who's found this new life playing online games, and his two best friends, who he's never met in real life, he only knows their avatars. One is the avatar of an Australian orc, and the other is the avatar of an Asian American girl, sword dancer. And the three of them, as I said, win the world championship live online with 40 million people watching. And the next moment, he's all alone and in quite a bit of trouble. So, yeah, everything revealed itself. Some of the characters who revealed themselves in book 1 reappear to play bigger parts in book 3 and 4, for example. I've written 4 in the series so far, and I'm working on the 5th at the moment. So yes, characters reveal themselves. The story tells you where it wants to go rather than the other way around. I mean, I've spent 40 years as a scriptwriter, so I've had plenty of opportunity to learn what makes story structure work. And a lot of it is getting out of your own way.
Well, I'd like to touch on that. I mean, because spending 4 decades writing for screen and stage and radio, I mean, how do you maintain that bliss and then keep crafting new narratives?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just love writing. I love reading about writing. I've always loved reading stories. And for me, the most important part of books is storytelling. I think your job is to be a storyteller, to be an entertainer. I studied literature at Oxford University, language and literature, but at the same college, incidentally, that J.R.R. Tolkien was slightly ahead of my time, and also Philip Pullman, Exeter College, a mere 700 years old. And there must be something in the water there for us to come out writing fantasies. And language and literature, and often people think that storytelling is not the most important thing about novels. Well, I beg to differ. I think if you can't do plot, you lose my interest. And a good narrative drive is, to me, the sign of a good writer. So how do I keep my interest? Well, nobody's going to pay you to write novels straight out of university. Take any job you can get. So I did student sketch shows as a writer. I was also in them as a rather feeble performer, but I enjoyed doing it. And then that led from one thing to another, and got a job in Welsh television in a very lowly capacity. And then when I got up to London, I had a couple of credits, so I managed to find a really good agent. She was agent to, let me see, 3 Monty Pythons, Douglas Adams, who's my exact contemporary, so we worked together. I have the Douglas Adams stories, but we probably don't have time for those now. Who else? Well, that'll do to start with. There were only about 25 of us. So you just keep taking any job you can get, and that way you learn. You learn a lot. And then that knowledge all germinates away and matures and comes out the other end if you're lucky.
Well, it seems, for those, Douglas Adams wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide. So that's quite a accomplishment to be rubbing elbows with those types of folks. Did that have any influence, or maybe just that time have influence on your writing today?
Oh, absolutely. We're all products of the others. It is impossible for anyone to emerge fully formed out of the forest. And I quote the French singer Charles Aznavour, who's in the room when he said, I was in the room when he said that. That's a brilliant observation. We're all drinking from the same well. Orcs weren't invented by Tolkien. They're in Beowulf, which is over 1,000 years old. And he was a scholar of Old English Anglo-Saxon. Yeah, I'm working with Douglas. We put something together for, Doctor Who? Because Douglas was working, I think, as a script advisor on that. And our agent said, give it a go and see if we can come up with an idea for a series. And we put something together. I can't remember anything about it. And Douglas showed it to the producer, and they said, we just did this story 3 seasons ago, or something like that. So that never went anywhere. But of course, when you're rubbing shoulders with Pythons and people like Douglas, and there are other great writers you'll never have heard of, TV writers from that period in that stable. And of course, they're friends. You bump into everyone, you see their shows. Mr. Bean, for example, I saw him on stage. Actually, he saw me on stage first, which is kind of weird to think about it, because I'm no kind of an actor. My friend and I were doing a 2-man sketch show at the Edinburgh Festival, and he and the current crop of Oxford students came along to support us, which is great. Someone introduced him to me afterwards, and he was very complimentary. So my partner and I went to see their show a couple of days later, and when he came on stage to do one solo piece, it was just, we turned to each other and our jaws hit the floor. And that was the real thing right there in front of us. So, I worked with Rowan. I wrote the piece that launched his career in a way, which was a sketch in The Secret Policeman's Ball that John Cleese produced. That was 1979. That was recorded, but I wrote it in 1978, and he did it in a small sketch show, which John had seen. And Rowan called me and said, John wants me to be in his new big charity show, and can we do The Policeman? And I said, wow, congratulations, and you certainly can. So, of course, you meet, and, then we go to the theatre and meet all our heroes, like Pete Townsend with an acoustic guitar wandering past, I remember. So, you soak in everything from everywhere. Keep your eyes open and keep reading and experiencing and having your eyes open.
What a phenomenal, rich history you have. And it's easy to see how this all plays into this wonderfully written book. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Richard Sparks in regards to his hot new release, New Rock, New Roll. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place, here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Richard Sparks, who's sharing with us his new book, New Rock, New Roll. You have so expertly just interwoven comedy and adventure in this book. Do you think that this is something that really resonates with not only readers, but our listeners as well?
Absolutely. Adventure and comedy have so much in common. Comedy is not nice people telling jokes. That's a dinner party. Comedy is all about fear and pain and things going wrong and confusion and betrayal and misunderstandings and people falling into puddles. And what adventure isn't full of disasters and threats and overwhelming, impossible odds that our heroes have to battle their way through? A lot in common in those two worlds. So it's, especially as a recovering / former comedy writer, it's inevitable in the way that I write that the comic pixie will keep coming in and whispering in my ear, and some scenes in the books are fun. I mean, they're not sort of like silly comedy. There's not a comic novel, but there's comic elements in there that people have said have had them laughing out loud. There's, you can get free samples on my website and listen to a free audio sample or read a free download sample and of the new book quite soon, and check it out and see if you like it. And both the chapters I picked have got comic elements in them. So yeah, there's so much that they have in common.
Well, we talked about this just a little bit earlier, but I am so in love and intrigued by your website. I was playing around. It is so interactive, and what a great place to learn more about your work.
Well, thank you very much. I'll pass that on to the web designers in England. They'll be thrilled. That's really kind of you to say so. It's just richardsparks.com. There's no E in Sparks. Yeah, do come on in, take a look around, get your free sample, and if you like it, join the party.
We don't want to give too much away, but can you share with us the story of New Rock, New Roll?
I certainly can. It came out of my love of role-playing games. I stress because I'm now too busy writing, very keen on multiplayer role-playing games online, which I would play either player versus player with a team of scoundrels like myself charging around getting up to mischief, or games where we just play against whatever the game has in store for you, player versus environment. And I was just wondering one day, God, what would it actually be like to be this guy, this avatar that I'd created for myself, this heroic young battle mage who has, got a magic staff and is galloping around getting up to mischief. and is young again. He's not a middle-aged gentleman pushing a computer keyboard around. So I came up with this concept of a person a bit like myself, who retired, was actually rather good at this new life of adventuring. And he and his two friends, who he meets online, the three of them win the World Championship of Sword and Sorcery with tens of million people watching live. And he's the battle mage with the heroic young avatar. One of them, his teammates, is an Australian player whose avatar is a fearsome battle axe wielding orc. And the third is an Asian American girl from Orange County. That's all he knows about his other players, and she's a dual-wielding sword dancer. She's the damage per second person. And the three of them win the World Championship. The next thing he knows, he's whizzed off down a bunch of special effects and is standing on a hillside all by himself with crappy beginner-level sword and shield in a world he's never seen before, for real. And he is his own avatar. And of course, you'd be useless because it's completely different from pushing a keyboard around. You may be an expert at that, but I don't know about you, but I've never held a sword in real life. I wouldn't know what to do with one. And he could hear wolves coming to get him. So of course, there's a lot of comedy amid the adventure and the dangers and things going wrong. And immediately things get worse. And eventually he finds himself being recruited into some lord's army, much against his will, and rather he's sold into it, in fact. And he trains up and he gets good, and he re-meets one of his players, Grell, the Australian orc character, and they pick up a young scoundrel, streetwise thief, and the three of them go off to war together. Meanwhile, there's no sign of the girl Christo. Who knows where she is, and but the fact that he's found one of his players gives them hope that the other one will be in this strange new world, whatever it is, which is a sort of medieval fantasy sword and sorcery world, pre-industrial revolution. Whether it's magic for real, he eventually discovers, which is where his strength was as a player. So it unfolds and it develops, and a quest unfolds in the world that they get to, which pits them against overwhelming odds, against a foe a lot more scary than anything they've faced in their games. And they have to take this on and win if they are going to discover what happened to them and why, which is all explained, by the way, and it's left open for the sequels so they can move on to the next map, to the next country, the next realm. The sequel, New Rock, New Realm, is coming out November 2024. And then I've written 4 in the series so far, so they come out once a year. And they're just a series of adventures, one leading on to another, with all sorts of things happening at them. So they're fun, but they're serious as well.
So there's a growing popularity with fantasy, just that whole genre. Why do you think that is so important now?
It's always been important. All the great works of literature that you can think of going back to the old days are fantasies. As I mentioned Beowulf earlier, what about in other cultures? What about the Ramayana in the Indian subcontinent, for example? What about in China? And of course, the oral traditions in Africa and the New World. They are all fantasies, shapeshifters and monsters, and who's in the forest. In Europe, are folk traditions going back to the stories written and discovered by the Grimm brothers, Hans Christian Andersen. They have very, very deep roots. What's out there? What's different? What is possible? Dragons? Who thought of dragons, and how did that come about? And why? Well, it's obvious why we love them. It's having a moment now because it's being rediscovered correctly by every new generation of readers and consumers of films and TV.
Can you share your website with us one more time?
www.richardsparks, all one word, .com. And the new book is to be published, New Rock, New Realm, the sequel, is to be published on November the 15th. And so there'll be samples of that up within the next few weeks, both a physical sample for you to download and an audio sample of me reading it for you to listen to. Check it out. See if you've read the first book, you get a sneak preview of the second adventure. They're all adventure stories. So yes, richardsparks.com.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It's been a pleasure, Marianne. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Richard. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, New Rock, New Roll. Make sure to connect with Richard at his very interactive website at richardsparks.com. There you can learn more about his books, download a sample, and be the first to hear of updates for this page-turner of a series. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.